Buenas and half a day, everyone. This informational hearing by the Committee on Child Welfare, Youth Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women's Affairs, Disability Services, the Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation, and Agatna Restoration is hereby called to order. Today is Wednesday, May 7, 2025, and the time is 9:03 a.m. For the record and in accordance with the open government law, notices for this hearing were sent on April 30, 2025, and again on May 5, 2025. In addition, this hearing was noticed on the Guam Legislature website and the Guam Public Notice website. Joining me here this morning is my committee member, Senator Chris Barnett, as well as the stakeholders that will be presenting their information later. So just masi everyone for joining me. Before we proceed with the discussion, I'd like to reiterate some general rules of conduct for those in attendance. The conduct of this hearing shall be as follows. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the nature of the agenda. The current agenda is an informational presentation from the Guam Legal Services Corporation Disability Law Center, GLSC-DLC, Guam Developmental Disabilities Council, GDDC, and the Guam Center of Excellence in Developmental Disabilities Education, Research, and Service, or CEDDERS. Before speaking, individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chairperson and they shall state their name for the record purposes. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to give my opening remarks. Half a day and welcome again, everyone. Today we are here to address a critical issue with far-reaching implications for individuals with disabilities and older Americans in Guam. The potential elimination of the Administration for Community Living, or ACL, poses a serious threat to the programs and services that provide vital support to some of our most vulnerable residents. The ACL has been a cornerstone in funding Guam's Developmental Disabilities Network programs. The Guam Developmental Disabilities Council, GDDC, Guam Cedars, and the Guam Legal Services Corporation Disability Law Center. These programs are fundamental in advocating for individuals with disabilities, conducting essential research, and ensuring legal protections. Without ACL funding, these organizations face significant challenges in continuing their work, leaving our community at risk. As policymakers, we have a responsibility to ensure that no one is left behind. It is our duty to explore every avenue to sustain and strengthen these programs, even in the face of adversity. That is why this informational hearing today is truly vital and important. Today, we will hear from the leaders of Guam Developmental Disabilities Council, Guam Cedars, and the Guam Legal Services Corporation Disability Law Center. They will provide us with a comprehensive understanding of the potential impacts of the ACL's elimination and offer insights into how we can mitigate these challenges. We also hope to hear from individuals with disabilities, older Americans, and their families, whose personal stories underscore the importance of these programs. The GDDC has been instrumental in promoting self-determination and inclusion through advocacy and systems change activities. Guam Cedars, a leader in education and training, empowers individuals and families with the tools needed to succeed. GLSC-DLC ensures that individuals with disabilities can access justice and have their rights upheld Together, these programs create a safety net that supports dignity, independence, and opportunity. The loss of ACL funding would have a profound impact from reducing essential services and hindering advocacy efforts. It is our responsibility to explore proactive solutions to sustain these programs and ensure that no one is left behind. This is a challenge that requires collaboration across government, nonprofits, and the private sector. I want to emphasize that this is not just a Guam issue. This is a national issue that requires a unified response. As we engage in these discussions, I encourage us to think creatively and collaboratively. How can we work together to ensure that continued success of these programs are met? What partnerships, alternative funding sources, or policy changes can we pursue to fill the gaps? Lastly, I want to thank each of you for your participation today and for being here today and your dedication to this cause. To the leaders and staff of the 3 Developmental Disabilities Network programs, thank you for your unwavering commitment to serving our community. To the individuals and families who have come to share their stories, thank you for your courage and advocacy. Your testimonies will shed light on the importance of these programs and the urgency on finding solutions and collaborating. Let us use this hearing as a platform for action. Together we can navigate these uncertain times and continue to build a future where every individual, regardless of ability or age, has the opportunity to thrive. Guam's commitment to inclusivity and support for its most vulnerable populations must remain strong. Sujus Masi, and I look forward to the presentation today. On this note, presentations by Developmental Disabilities Network programs is now entertained. Please approach the panel. Attorney Daniel Sommerfleck, Executive Director of Guam Legal Services Corporation, Disability Law Center, or GLSC-DLC. We welcome you, sir. Mr. Jermaine Alerta, Executive Director of Guam Developmental Disabilities Council, GDDC. Have a seat, sir. Ms. June De Leon, Executive Director of Guam Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities Education, Research and Services, or CEDDERS. Half a day, good morning.
Good morning, Senators.
Good morning, sir. Please be mindful to speak closely to the microphone so we can all hear you guys. Go ahead, sir. Let's begin with your presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity to appear before the legislature. And I think in the span of the time since we originally discussed this to where we are today, there are a number of substantial changes that are going on that may affect Guam in a significant way. What we are here today to discuss are programs that were established by the DD Act, the Developmental Disabilities Act of 1975. And actually there was legislation even before that empowering the councils and the predecessor of Cedars. But 75 was pretty much the start point for the protection and advocacy programs. Since that time, the DD Act, thank you, sir. Since the time where the DD Act was initially established, it has evolved in great ways over time. The structure is referred to as the DD Network, comprised of state councils on developmental disabilities, university centers for excellence in developmental disabilities education, research, and services, and the protection and advocacy system. These are operated in every state and territory of the U.S. They often participate in related complementary work and collaboration, even though they have very different mandates. The DD the DD network is a group of basically our three organizations that oftentimes come together on co-related issues. Probably one of the best examples of that was during the pandemic, where our three agencies worked together to provide information to persons with disabilities, to provide a means for them to make appointments for their public health immunizations, and to provide public awareness. And it was a time that I will say, at least from my perspective, was a wonderful collaborative effort. I think the three organizations did an excellent job in outreaching, providing means and information to persons with disabilities related to the pandemic. We also worked together on other initiatives. If we look back over the past few years, which is what I've been doing since we had this meeting set up, you see numerous events where the three agencies work together in a collaborative fashion. From the legal aspect, I'm regularly talking for either the University Cedars or for the DD Council about legal issues that affect individuals with disabilities. Recently, I spoke for the DD Council at their conference regarding employment discrimination and how the ADA affects the employment world with persons with disabilities. Much of what I discuss with individuals and much of what I provide to individuals is from a legal standpoint. What are your rights? How do you enforce your rights? What happens if you try to enforce your rights and you don't get a response? And I guess at the point where they don't get a response is where they come to our office and we provide legal assistance. The tri-agency, as I've mentioned, has gone through a number of changes. But I think one overarching theme that all of the agencies look at is we are the protectors of the moral test of government. As Hubert Humphrey said in his last speech on the Senate floor, and I'm from Minnesota, so obviously my reference points are very Minnesota-orientated, but as he stated in his last speech on the Senate floor, the moral test of government is how we care for those in the dawn of life, the children, how we care for those in the twilight of life, the seniors, and how we care for individuals in the shadow of life, victims of abuse and persons with, he said handicap, I've updated it to persons with disabilities. And I bring that up intentionally because a lot of what we talk about is mindset. What is our mindset toward persons with disabilities? Now, I didn't grow up on Guam, but I know the word Brody. And I've always wondered, is that considered complimentary or insultive? And I'm still not sure. I saw a beautiful Dodge Charger with all the bells and whistles on it, bright orange, with Brody on the front. So I don't think it's meant derogatory, otherwise it wouldn't be on the front of this beautiful supercharged car, but I'm not sure what it means. I know the reference point is back to Chief Brody when it was a program for persons with disabilities to have education in an isolated environment. And I guess this is where I have great difficulty with some current thought processes. If I look at myself and I look at the term DEI, I have a hard time saying I'm not DEI. I believe in equity. I believe in inclusion. So I guess I'm DEI, at least for persons with disabilities. My DEI might not go so far as to all the issues that people are bringing up, but there's no question in my mind that I represent an organization that stands for inclusion, equality, equity, and that has been the function of our office since it was created. At any rate, I get sidetracked. I apologize. The three agencies that make up the tri-agency, starting with the State Councils on Developmental Disabilities. Councils were established to coordinate, integrate the provision of services for individuals with developmental disabilities in the least restrictive environment, largely in response to advocates urging that government funds should be applied to a broad range of services rather than primarily toward building and modifying institutions, and that the DD community, including parents, advocates, should participate in decisions of how DD money is used. In the 1975 law, the scope of the councils was revised to include advocacy and the requirement to prepare plans on deinstitutionalization in each council's respective states. Councils later changed focus from service provision or demonstrative actions to policy change. Council members' requirements were changed under the law in the 2020 DD Act, raising requirements of the composition of the DD Council, that it should include a majority of individuals with developmental disabilities or their families, almost to a 1/3 of individuals, 1/3 guardians, and then 1/3 made up of other categories. And at least one member must represent someone who resides or resided in an institution or is an adult who has resided or resides in an institution. According to the 2020 DD Act, the purpose of the councils is to undertake advocacy, capacity building, systemic change activities that contribute to a coordinated, consumer and family-centered, consumer family-directed, comprehensive system of community services, individualized supports, and other forms of assistance that promote self-determination for individuals with developmental disabilities and their families. I often, when I sit down with my tri-agency partners, refer to Jermaine as the political aspect of our tri-agency. He is a member of the cabinet and serves the governor as a member of the cabinet. He also has the ability to inform policymakers such as the government and yourselves as to the needs of the disability community, particularly the developmental disability community. The second branch I refer to as the smart ones in our group. They are the university affiliated, well, they've changed their name from university affiliated facilities to university affiliated programs to finally CEDDERS, university affiliated programs, CEDDERS. Their focus has always been to provide programs that expand medical and allied health care to include education, consumer empowerment, productivity, and conclusion. Recent DD Act reauthorizations have increased the importance of community-based programs, technical assistance, and dissemination. The 2020 reauthorization added research as a core function and, of course, renamed them again. The focus of the centers has evolved as the values identified of the DD Act have moved from institutional-based services to community-based services to community integration and self-determination. The core function of CEDDERS, as described in the DD Act, includes providing interdisciplinary pre-service education of students and fellows, providing community service, including training or technical assistance, conducting research, and disseminating information. And this is why I call them the smart ones of the three of us, because they are educating our providers. They have done work to support education and medical to move forward in the services that they're able to provide. While I may bring actions against the Department of Education to try and force them to implement autism services, it is you, CEDDERS, that educates those educators as to how to provide those services. And they play a vital role in that aspect, as they will explain. The other area that I was recently able to participate with you, CEDDERS, was in their GSAT program. And over the past few weeks, they've had their programs and they've done outreaches at the mall. And they brought forward to the community what tools are available to persons with developmental disabilities to better integrate into our society, to obtain employment, to retain employment, and to be productive members of our community. Finally, the organization I represent, we're a private nonprofit corporation. We have no ties to the government. We receive no funds from the government of Guam. Although when I was first employed at Guam Legal Services some 34 years ago, I believe that money came from funding through the legislature that brought me out here to Guam and had me advocate for victims of family violence. The P&A system was created in the DD Act to protect the legal and human rights of individuals with developmental disabilities through legal action and advocacy in every state and territory, as well as within the Native American program. Initiated in 1975 to protect individuals with developmental disabilities living in large institutions from abuse, neglect, and prompted in part by investigations of the dreadful conditions at Willowbrook State School and Hospital, a state residential institution for people with developmental disabilities in Staten Island, New York. I did not bring Geraldo Rivero's investigative report on Willowbrook. If anyone would like to see it, I have it available. It is not easy to watch, seeing individuals with developmental disabilities put in a basement area without clothes, without services, without anything, basically. And it really did shock everyone's consciousness back in 1973 when that expose came out. And that was, I would say, the incubator for the tri-agency. And it was a situation that I believe anyone who looked at it said, this is not the way people should be treated. So that was basically what started us. Then in 1984, the DD Act gave protection and advocacy programs access to records so that we can look at what records are being maintained and we can address issues that are readily available. If there is a complaint regarding the facility, we have access. If there is probable cause, we have access. I should say we should have access. It's still an issue that's in somewhat contention with a couple of agencies within the government of Guam. P&As have played a key part in the deinstitutionalized process, and their mission has grown to include helping children and their parents advocate for appropriate education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, implementing and enforcing the Americans with Disabilities Act, and enforcing the rights of people with mental health challenges and other disabilities. So I hope that I've at least given you a little bit of a historical background as to our programs. At this point, we also have each of the programs doing a separate presentation. And I'll just make one comment. You can tell who the educators are because their materials look the best. I mean, this is gorgeous. Then you got mine. It's a letter. But this is gorgeous. With your indulgence, I'll keep going and discuss Guam Legal Services Corporation and the Disability Law Center. This is a program, obviously, that's very near and dear to me, as I've committed over, I think I'm at like 18 years of my life, to the Disability Law Center. We are the protection and advocacy for individuals with developmental disabilities. We are also the protection and advocacy for individuals with a mental illness under our PAMI program. We are the protection and advocacy for individual rights under our PAIR program. We are the protection and advocacy for assistive technology. We are the protection and advocacy for beneficiaries of Social Security. And until May of this year, I would have said we're the protection and advocacy for traumatic brain injury and the protection and advocacy for voter access, but it's my understanding that both of those programs are cut or in the process of being cut. We are a private nonprofit 503c corporation. We are not part of the territorial government, nor are we part of an educational institution. We function primarily based upon federal government grants. Throughout GLSC's existence, we have advocated for the prevention of abuse and neglect in all aspects of life. When our corporation was founded, our founder's goal was to provide high-quality legal services to those in the shadow of life. Since 1999, when the protection and advocacy programs were redesignated to GLSC, one of our primary missions has been to prevent abuse, neglect, and discrimination of individuals with disabilities. We also operate programs for the protection of victims of family violence, sexual assault, stalking, and harassment. Upon the redesignation of the Protection and Advocacy Program to GLSC-DLC, immediate concerns were brought to our attention regarding the care and treatment of individuals with developmental disabilities and persons with serious mental illness at the Adult Inpatient Unit at the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. After negotiated resolutions failed, GLSC filed for a permanent injunction. The findings of facts and conclusions of law by District Judge Consuelo B. Marshall included the following. This is our own Willowbrook situation, and I think it's important that we recognize where we've been. This is directly from the court's judgment. The plaintiff has walked off the AIU, a locked ward, on 2 occasions, the return to the AIU both times by police, has been placed in 2-point restraints and a locked seclusion room for physical aggression, pounding on walls, and not responding to redirection. Fell on the floor, lacerated his chin with abrasions to his left leg while in ambulatory restraints. Plaintiff received treatment some 7 hours later with 5 stitches to his chin. Plaintiff has been bitten twice by other clients, has been placed in a locked seclusion room on at least 2 occasions without doctor's orders. The plaintiff has been sexually abused. Experts testify the planning of treatment and intervention for plaintiff substantially departs from the generally accepted minimum standards of care. The plaintiff has established that their rights under Youngberg have been violated by the defendant. Specifically, the court concluded the defendants have failed to provide reasonably safe conditions of confinement for plaintiffs committed to the state psychiatric hospitals. Plaintiffs have been subject to unreasonable bodily restraint. Defendants have failed to provide plaintiffs with minimally adequate habilitation that is reasonable in light of the circumstances of this case. Defendants have consistently failed to implement the recommendation of treating professionals. Defendants' decision to place mentally retarded persons on a general psychiatric ward and to seclude and mechanically restrain plaintiffs without employing behavioral treatment is such a substantial departure from the accepted professional judgment practice and standards as to demonstrate the decisions is not a function of independent professional judgment within the meaning of Youngberg. Youngberg is a Supreme Court case out of the United States Supreme Court that addressed the rights of institutionalized individuals. The defendants failed to fulfill the community placement recommendations of state treatment professionals in such a substantial departure from the accepted professional judgment practices and standards to again demonstrate that the decisions are not a function of independent professional judgment within the meanings of Youngberg. The defendants have failed to provide necessary training to ensure plaintiff safety and to facilitate their ability to function free from bodily restraint. After years after the permanent injunction was entered and multiple findings that the defendants had not complied with the court order, the case was eventually resolved some 15 years later. During that same period, GLSC-DLC also successfully litigated to provide a meaningful paratransit system for persons with disabilities, successfully litigated to provide ADA-compliant sidewalks, litigated to provide autism services in the public school systems, successfully litigated to provide residential treatment programs for children and adults with serious emotional disturbances. In each of these situations, as much as I would like to say they're my own thought, they're not. In each of these situations, GLSC represented individual parents and or guardians who were courageous enough to stand up for their lawful given rights. In more recent times, over the last 5-year period ending September 30th, GLSC-DLC has continued to provide high-quality legal representation to those in the shadow of life. However, in recent years, GLSC has continued to monitor compliance for group home, residential facilities for individuals with disabilities, as well as the AIU and the Children's Inpatient Unit to ensure safety of the consumers. I would encourage lawmakers to look at the facilities. It is a constant effort on our part to bring forward concerns regarding the facilities that we provide to individuals with developmental disabilities and serious mental illness. We continue to send individuals to off-island residential treatment programs because we do not have appropriate on-island treatment facilities. I'll digress for a minute here because I've got my staff behind me who go out to the AIU, who go out to the CEIU, and who go out to all the community group homes that are currently functioning. And what we do is we monitor. We make suggestions. And I guess by saying we make suggestions, I do have to say that maybe suggestions with a little bit of a stick, because we are a law office. But our goal is not to litigate. Our goal is to find resolution. The reported numbers of our activities during the 5-year period ending September 30th reflect that GLSC has assisted 35 cases of abuse, 16 cases of neglect, investigated 6 cases of suspicious death, assisted 96 students with special ed issues, including filing 15 due process complaints, conducted 494 monitor visits, and again, that's not me, that's these people behind me doing 494 monitor visits, assisted 353 clients with rights violations, participated in 515 outreach, and trained over 8,073 individuals, disseminated 12,470 brochures and publications. And I guess we're part of the modern world because we have 88,000 website hits. Not something I regularly monitor, but I was quite amazed when my staff told me that we had 88,000 web page hits. That to me seems like a lot. Because, Senator Calvo, you brought up the issue of funding, it was actually an issue that we were going to try and avoid today, because right now it's very unknown where we are. We saw a leaked, unofficial proposed budget that said ACL's gone. We've seen other programs unfunded. Then came out the most recent budget request from the president, and it contained, in my opinion, a lack of specificity. I'm not sure where we're going to be at the end of this month. And I think at this time, we don't know. I wish I could say to you that here's a number that we're going to ask you all to fund us with. But we've never asked, well, during my term as executive director, I've never asked for money from you all. We don't receive anything from the general fund. But if it means that our services will cease, I would opine to you that you have just lost your inspector generals for individuals with developmental disabilities. No one else monitors these programs. In fact, I received a letter from the director of Guam Behavioral recently thanking us because we're acting as their compliance officers. And at first thought, I thought, we're not your compliance officers. You should be complying yourself. But then in reflection, I kind of considered it almost complimentary that we are over their shoulder. We are monitoring their compliance. We are ensuring that people are treated appropriately. We are ensuring that the wards and the places where these individuals reside are safe. We are ensuring that they are accessible. And we're correcting mistakes that are made in trying to be ADA compliant. It does little good to put grab bars in positions where you can't grab them. So that is what we do. I don't want to steal all my thunder from my tri-agency members, so I'll sit down and be quiet now at this point. Although I will say again, this is spectacular.
Thank you, Sujus Masi, for your testimony. Attorney Summerfleck, there's going to be more of the discussion later. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for the other entities to start their giving their information.
I would thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very grateful.
You're very welcome, sir. Next, I'd like to call in Mr. Jermaine Alerta, Executive Director of Guam Developmental Disabilities Council, or GDDC. Mr. Alerta, half a day in Buenos. You may begin, sir.
Half a day, Senator. Thank you so much for the opportunity for allowing us to be here, and also for the tri-agency partners. Good morning, Senator Calvo. Thank you for the memo to match our outfits of the day for the color. And well, Senator Barnett stepped out, but I want to thank him for not wearing the same shirt. I know he does have this shirt. I've seen him.
Senator Barnett will come back and rejoin us later.
Well, thank you so much again. My name is Jermaine Alerta. I'm the Executive Director of the Guam Developmental Disabilities Council. State councils on developmental disabilities were established as part of the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act, or the DD Act, to advocate for change in service systems for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There's a council in every U.S. state and territory. In Guam, Executive Order number 94-09 established the Guam Developmental Disabilities Council to ensure that individuals with IDD and their families participate in the design of and have access to cultural services, support, assistance, and other opportunities which promote self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion into the community. The Council identifies pressing needs in areas such as education, employment, healthcare, housing, and transportation, and develops a 5-year state plan to address some of the needs through advocacy, capacity building, and systems change activities. The work of the Guam DD Council helps in the following ways. We help create partnerships, collaborations, and equal opportunities to improve the daily lives of people with IDD. The GDDC is part of a strong DD tri-agency partnership and possesses membership on numerous disability-related organizations which address issues affecting the disability community. This allows representatives of the Council to participate in and provide input during meetings, forums, trainings, and workshops to share lived experiences about their provision and availability of services and programs. The DD Council helps effectuate change by bringing together community partners to create equity in all opportunities for people with IDD. By design, the Council's membership is mandated to include a majority of individuals with IDD or their immediate family members. However, membership also includes DD Act network partners, government entities, and a non-government representative, all within the disability-related field. This structure ensures that the Council remains focused on advocating for and addressing the needs of people with IDD and their families, with direct input from those most affected. The DD Council work helps empower self-advocates to share their lived experiences and speak up for themselves on issues affecting people with IDD. The Council recognizes the strength and voice of self-advocates. The GDDC routinely coordinates, organizes, and helps facilitate trainings, workshops, outreach events, and other support resources which help self-advocates speak up for their rights, make their own decisions, and shape their own future. This helps to ensure that they build the confidence to be heard, respected, and leading the way as part of the decision-making process. The DD Council work helps to educate decision makers by using research and data to help create and improve policies and services affecting people with IDD. With the input from council members, the GDDC uses their lived experiences to improve and expand existing services and programs. We provide information about how systems change, make a direct impact on people's lives, and why the input of people with IDD and their families is critical to understanding why they need the continued chance and improvement exists, or why the need for continued chance and improvement exists. The current state plan of the DDC addresses community living and emergency needs through activities focused on the following areas of emphasis as identified in the DD Act: education, employment, health, transportation, and assistive technology. Additionally, our federal grantor requires all councils to include self-advocacy as an area of emphasis. Many of these council activities are accomplished through the following ways. Meetings. The DD Council conducts its general membership meeting on a quarterly basis. Council activities are reviewed and discussed by all members, and representatives are allowed the opportunity to give organization-specific updates about items on which work was performed. Meetings are also conducted each month to focus on respective areas of emphasis designated to each of the 4 existing council standing committees: self-advocacy, children and families, which focuses on education, adults, which focuses on employment, and cross-cutting, which focuses on transportation. Additionally, council staff attend and participate in other meetings conducted by disability-related organizations, including Guam Cedars, the Department of Integrated Services for Individuals with Disabilities, Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, and the Guam Department of Education. Lastly, the council is included in monthly cabinet-level meetings locally and on a bi-weekly national all-call meeting with the other states and territorial councils. Outreach and events activities. The GDDC regularly organizes and participates in conferences, workshops, trainings, and community events to better educate and raise public awareness about disability issues, including participating in various community events such as fairs, expos, school open houses, and at the flea market, sponsoring and conducting disability sensitivity and awareness training for hundreds of Government of Guam employees. I think in the last year, it was offered to about 150. And this includes prospective law enforcement applicants who have to go through post-training. Spearheading and planning the Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month activities, such as community meet and greets, workshops, and disability-related organization presentations. Participation in disaster and emergency relief, preparedness, and assistance efforts with tri-agency partners, the Office of the Governor, FEMA, DICID, and Homeland Security. The most recent of this work was during the COVID-19 pandemic and in the aftermath of Super Typhoon Mawar, and managing an aggressive media and social media presence. As an entity that does not function as a direct service provider, there are challenges in demonstrating the overall impact of our program. Unfortunately, the DD Council does not have clients or collect statistical data from individuals and families seeking service, so we don't have a plethora of numbers at our disposal. We do, however, exist to listen to their stories and use their experiences to advocate for better ways to get things done. Results and change are rarely immediate, but we know that what we do helps them to help themselves. Self-advocates learn and acquire skills which help them speak up for the issues that matter most to them and push for change. Family members have a better understanding of the multitude of services and programs available in the community and can find comfort in knowing that support systems to which they can turn to for assistance and guidance exist. The more that individuals with IDD and their families can become independent and confident, the more they add to their societal contributions. It increases the chances of finding steady employment, which helps our economy by expanding the workforce. It increases the chances of improving their overall health, which helps ease the strain on our healthcare system. It increases the chances of raising the overall quality of life, which benefits all of us. Over the years, there have been many great accomplishments to address disability issues, but so much work still remains. To state it plainly, our DD Network programs reinforce the understanding that people with disabilities and their families are not alone, and underscores our commitment to working together to accomplish even greater things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alerta. At this point, I'd like to welcome the testimony of Ms. June De Leon, Executive Director of Guam Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities Education, Research, and Service, or CEDDERS. Half a day, Ms. June.
Half a day. Thank you, Senator Calvo, for this opportunity. Dan, thank you for the kudos. Now there's high expectations for the use of this tool. Jermaine, thank you. As you can see, our partnership is very strong. Actually, you can also see that we have distinct roles, even though we're under the umbrella of the DD Act. But the purpose for the DD Act was to create distinct roles. But the roles come together as a unit, right, in collaboration to increase the awareness and support for individuals with disabilities in the community. Dan mentioned care. I always reflect on our culture, family, right, community. And I always take pride in being from Guam, born and raised. So Dan's probably just, you can be a Guamanian now by this time, but having been born and raised on Guam, I've gone through the system. I've experienced the culture, and I think we should take pride in the care that we take for our people, right? That is inclusive of people with disabilities and their families, right? So I've had the privilege of working at the University of Guam for over close to 30 years now, right? And at Cedars, we're an outreach unit out of the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs. And the university has supported Cedars and the program for over 30 years. So you can see, Senator Calvo, that the support the university has for the program and for individuals with disabilities are very strong. Because as a university, we take pride in being a part of Guam and a part of the region, right? We are your university, we are the community's university, right? So I think there's strength in that. So if I can direct you to the booklet, you have one, Senator? I could just walk you through. The booklet. Thank you, thank you. And so the agency overview, as I mentioned, is we've been with the university for over 30 years, and we appreciate your continued support of the local funding. Just know that as the interim director for Cedars, my position is part of the administration position, which is through the local appropriation that you provide. So I appreciate that, and that's part of the commitment the university has in housing or supporting Cedars, which is a federal grant under the DD Act. And so we have 27 employees under Cedars right now, and aside from myself, which is the 28th person, right, they are all federally grant contract funded, right? So our role is really to take a look at what resources are available and how do we access resources so that we can improve and build the local and regional capacity in our community, right? So taking care of our community through the university's preparation mission as well as community support mission, right? So the whole DD Act and our role at the University of Guam as the Cedars is really complementary to the whole intent and mission of the University of Guam. So that sort of looks at the agency overview on the cover page, and we are one of 68 nationally recognized UCEDDS, right? And we serve as intended as the liaisons between academia and the community. As Dan's organization raises concerns about, issues, as the council looks at policies and issues around that, then for us, we look at, as a university, how then do we build local and regional professional capacity so that it can support the community, right? To address these issues that have been raised. If you look at our key functions, our mission, the 3 terms that we hold dear to is partnerships, pathways, well-being. And the well-being notion came up through our last application for funding. So it was more of an emphasis rather than quality of life in our advisory council perspective. Because the well-being of an individual, when you look at your situation, your condition, the state of who you are, right? If we look at the well-being of individuals with disabilities as part of the community, then we're going to then also increase and support the well-being of our overall community. So the 3 terms that we hold dear as principles, as part of our mission, really then the outcome is looking at the well-being of individuals with disabilities, but as well as the community, right? So the community of Guam and in the region. As I mentioned, we've been in existence for over 30 years at the University of Guam, and we sort of feel that our role is to access resources, take a look at the issues, and then what can we do to access resources to bring it to Guam, to bring it to the region to increase capacity, right? So if you open up your packet on the 2nd page, then you'll see the program and initiatives. Hey, are you following along? You didn't get a copy? Hey, there's plenty extra copies. You can share it so you can open. Thank you. On page 2, it sort of lists out our programs and initiatives. And this is not I'm just highlighting some of the areas that I think we want to recognize. But through the DD Act, there are specific core functions that we have to operate on, and one, of course, is the interdisciplinary pre-service or preparation, and that's why we're located at the university, right? It's because we look at preparation programs, those individuals who are attaining a degree, so that when they leave the university, their awareness about disabilities have increased, right? And so you have your managers, your workers, the public health workers out there that we're hoping will have increased understanding about individuals with disabilities, right? We have training and technical assistance activities, and the community service through our model services, demonstration services, and then the last column is the dissemination research and leveraging resources. And this is where I was mentioning that we view the CEDDERS and Guam Cedars as the conduit for accessing resources to meet our needs for professional development, right? So you can see the list there. Under interdisciplinary pre-service continuing education, we hire and employ student office assistants. And these individuals really are critical to our operations. They're UOG full-time students. So we give them an opportunity by employing them as part-time employees to work with us in our operations. But I think more importantly, the value in that is that they build their understanding about disabilities, right? Internships, we serve as a center who welcomes practicum experiences, needed internships from schools and colleges and the university. Again, this is part of the preparation programs, right? Special education teacher certification has been a priority. Early Start Denver model, ESDM certification, and this is an evidence-based approach that we look at for young children, birth through 5, right, that have autism. And so we know that that's a critical area about services to children with autism. And so as we start early and really build our professional capacity around supporting young children with autism, then the idea is that as they go through the system, then they would be supported, right? Early identification, early intervention is really critical. FSM leadership certification, you must know that as a university, we are responsive to Guam, but also the region. So we do work with the 6 Pacific entities on various projects, right? Accessible Masters in Special Education program, and one thing that we recognize is we need to build nationally, there's a shortage of teachers in the field of special education. We know that. And so locally, what can we do? At the university, our master's in special education is a traditional in-person program, which limits its accessibility to folks, not only on Guam, but throughout the region, right? And so we were able to get a grant through the Office of Special Education Programs, and it's a pre-service development grant. And so we work closely with the School of Education and really taking a look at deconstructing and reconstructing their master's program to an online delivery system. That way it will be accessible not only to individuals on Guam who's interested in a master's and interested in the field of special education, but regionally, right? Interdisciplinary studies course is another priority under the interdisciplinary pre-service area. And so that we want to make it available to other schools and colleges so that their students and the prospective workers out there will be then more informed and have a better understanding about disabilities. The training and technical assistance, you know, these are just a few that we work with that I wanted to highlight, right? The State Systemic Improvement Project, the State Performance Plan, and we'll go into more details when I talk about the impact, right? The impact of these programs. Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, ADOS cohorts. ADOS is the gold standard for the identification of young children, or children with autism. And so the Department of Education has invested funding to support the development of their professionals to be certified to administer, score, interpret the ADOS-2, right? So we have been collaborating with the Department of Education, Division of Special Education, to make sure that that's an ongoing support to their program. Alternate Assessment Child Care Training Series. We have a contract with Public Health that really targets child care providers, child care centers, taking a look at building awareness about disabilities, about assistive technology. And so again, we extend out to the community of the kinds of things that we do, right? Guam and CNMI State Personnel Development Grants. This is a specific grant that they each got. Guam DOE has one, CNMI Public School System has one, and we are partners in their grants. And part of being a partner is to really take a look at the professional learning that needs to occur, but professional and family learning, you know, so this is a great opportunity for that collaboration. Under model services, we have the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention project, and it is a federally funded project. And I'll talk more about that when we look at the outcomes piece. Community services demonstrations. Senator Calvo, you're very familiar with our annual Guam System for Assistive Technology GSAT conference and fair. We appreciate your continued support, and definitely it's through the tri-agency effort that this annual conference occurs, right? But we do get federal funding out of the AT Act for this particular project. And then the dissemination, research, leveraging resources, of course, websites. Oh my gosh, Dan, I have to count how many hits. But actually, that is a reporting requirement for us too. So, okay, you got 88,000? Wow, that's a lot.
5 years.
5 years. Yeah, usually it's about over 12,000 hits, right? But we have 3 websites. How many you got? Yeah, I know. We're also, you know.
And here's the controversy.
Academia. No, but and we're upgrading it and refining it, because definitely you need someone to pay attention to that all the time. So newsletters, evaluation projects that we work with behavioral health, as well as the SPDIG grants, and then institutional and organizational partnerships under leveraging, right? I think that's really important and key in our role. Like I said, we're accessing resources to bring to Guam and the region, right? So those are the sort of main areas that we wanted to review with you. When you talk about community integration and impact, I really appreciate your thought about the notion of community integration, Because as Dan said, under the DD Act, if you read through it, if you read through our purpose for each of our roles, right, it is about DEI. It is about ensuring that we not only take care of our people with disabilities, but the care needs to ensure that they have supports to push them to high expectations. From an educational side, moving away from I'll take responsibility and care for them to what can we do to build your capacity so that you can be a productive citizen, as Dan was mentioning and referring to earlier, right? So I appreciate that, and you're asking the question, so what's the impact? Well, if you look at, there are 3 areas that I want to emphasize, right? One, I think over the years have been the early identification and intervention of young children with hearing loss. The second one is increased awareness and use of assistive technology, and of course, you have been very supportive of that, Senator Calvo. And then the last is increased professional capacity. So we go through each one. On the bottom of the page 2, we review about our EDDI grant. Senator Calvo, you mentioned about ACL. You mentioned about, the president's intent or request to eliminate the Administration for Community Living. The other thing that's on his cut list is HRSA, and is the funding that provides to the universal hearing screening. So when we looked at that, that is one of the areas that is listed under elimination. When we got the grant, right, way back, part of the grant was to ensure the early identification of young children. Our role is really a system coordination and to try to make sure that all early childhood providers, from when the birth occurs, right, that the kids are identified if they have a hearing loss, and that we then connect them to early intervention, which is out of DOE special education, Guam Early Intervention Services, right? So we're the systems coordination in this grant. But you have to know that in 2004, Guam Public Law 27150 actually required the establishment of universal hearing screening program at all birthing sites. Right now, we're working with the only public hospital, which is GMH, because we lost, Saigon, remember? They closed down. And so we work closely with GMH as well as public health, because this is a local mandate in 2004, right? And it actually specifically lists the Cedars, UCEDDS, UOG Cedars, as the entity through its Guam EDDI project to collaborate with other early childhood providers and public health. So this Guam EDDI, through HRSA funding, has a lot of history here on Guam, right? To build capacity and systems improvement around the early identification and intervention of young children with hearing loss. So that's something maybe to consider when you look at ACL and the president's proposed budget, right? The other thing is the increased awareness and use of assistive technology. We do get a separate grant for this. It's the state AT project. It's out of ACL. We have seen it on the list. It's not due for cuts. And so we anticipate that it will be funded, continued funding, right? And this provides the opportunity for awareness in the community by demonstrations. You've been involved in the GSAC conference, the expo, the fair, and the idea is to build awareness. We also, of course, the university, as I mentioned, have been very supportive of the program. And so we have a model home, House 20 at Dean Circle, that displays assistive technology, devices, equipment for homes. And so we have visitors that come in, because here we go, when we talk about developmental disabilities, right, and that's our charge. We talk about onset of conditions before age 22. But these kids grow up. You also have individuals who sort of come to having a disability at an older age, right? You know, we know CDC, right, Dan? We were reflecting on that. CDC reported that there's one in 4, is it 1 in 4? American adults that have a disability, right? And I think we were looking at some of the data for Guam and back in looking at the risk factors from 2021, I believe. Guam's adult population with disabilities was like 1 in 3. So think about that, right? So when we look at assistive technology, we're focusing on individuals with developmental disabilities, but we also know later in life, and I'm getting there, you can tell. Senator, you're getting there too. Hey, but I'm older than you. Dan, you know, hey, conditions happen, man. And so, as a university, having a model home, you know, having things that could assist you, right, within your home. I mean, we're there to support whatever is needed, right? The lifespan again, right? So we definitely appreciate having that that model home and model house on the university campus. The other thing that I think is real supportive of individuals with disabilities is our Acuity Loan program, right? GSAT facilitates this alternative financing for very low interest and flexible terms to allow consumers the ability to purchase assistive technology devices. For example, an accessible van so that you can go to work, right? That could be a part of the Acuity loan. So individuals with disabilities who want to, again, high expectation, what do we need to support them so they can work and be a productive citizen, right? We have that Acuity loan program. And so we give the phone number and the website. It's on the GSAT website for more information. Increased professional capacity. I think this is really key from a preparation institution as well as the partnerships that go beyond, right? Within the University of Guam, we partner with School of Health, College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, College of Natural and Applied Sciences, School of Business and Public Administration, and School of Education. Preparation opportunities such as, and I mentioned earlier, the student office assistants that we employ, they come from the different colleges and schools, and they're getting their degrees. And so their interaction with us, we're hoping will increase their awareness about disabilities, right? As well as the internships. Preparation programs that target emerging needs, such as a special education teacher certification program. Senator Barnett, this was ever since. Just know DOE is very, very supportive and is really looking at how do we increase capacity, especially in special education, right? And we can't just say, okay, it's enough. We need to sustain it so that it continues from year to year, right? So we collaborate closely with the Division of Special Education in area of needs, and we work closely with them to try to find and access resources to make things happen. So you'll see as we go into the numbers what we're doing and how we're addressing that particular area. I know you're particularly interested in that, sir. So when we look at institutional organizational partnerships, really we say on behalf of the 6 specific entities, because we do have grants and contracts that may be specific to that entity, but we also have a grant that's for the region, and we'll talk more about that. But we work closely with, like, University of Illinois for the Assistive Technology Certificate Program, Drexel University Autism Institute, and School of Education. We work with UC Davis Mind Institute for the ESDM certification. Again, looking at how can we increase professional capacity, right? And here on Guam and throughout the region. USC Children's Hospital, Los Angeles, American Institutes for Research, AIR, and the National Association of State Directors of Special Education, NASD, right? We partner with them on this Guam and CNMI SPEDIG projects. AIR, which is Progress Center, and LEAD in IDA Center, which is actually national centers out of OSEP, Office of Special Education Program. We work closely with them to then come on site, do virtual, but really come on site to look at IDA, the IEP, and what does that mean for improving educational programming, right? So we work closely with those. The Guam Parent Training and Information, PTI program, and Autism Community Together organization, those have been really key in looking at reaching out to families of children with disabilities. And we partner with them on our Guam EDDI project as well as the Guam SPEDIG projects, because they're really the connectors to families, and they've been very, very supportive. Guam Tri-Agency, of course, my partner in crime, or not crime though, but the three of us together. San Jose State University, we did implement, we worked with them on the master's degree in speech pathology, and actually they graduated in 20, and most of them are employed by the Division of Special Education, I would have to say. UMass Boston University, we've partnered with them on a grant that developed teachers of students with visual impairments, TVIs, and so that was like over 10 years ago, but I know we still have the relationship because they still have their online TVI program, right? So those are just some of the areas and the collaboration that we do. On the last page, Senator Barnett might be very, very interested in this. Do you have your booklet, Senator? Okay, thank you. So I make sure. Oh, well, okay, handout, whatever. So the impact, when we look at programs, and you know, we can do a lot, but then what? What happens, right? And as I said, our role is to access resources, right? And really take a look at how do we increase local and regional capacity in supporting the high expectations of our families with individuals with disabilities, right? I mentioned student office assistants. We employ 5, and they come from 4 different colleges and schools. Internships, we usually connect with the social worker program, and we have 3 from social work and 1 from class under psychology. So they spend time with us. They work with the projects, in particular GSAD, and I know at the conference, the last conference, they even did a presentation on an activity around, you know, mental health and so forth. So it gives them that experience of being with individuals with disabilities and working with them. The AT certification, I'm real excited about that because it really looks at how do we get certification of professionals with an ATP. And that's out of the national organization when you look at assistive technology professional, right? We have 4 completing the University of Illinois AT certificate program, and that should get them ready to take the exam to be ATP certified. What that does in our community is we then have resources around assistive technology, professionals, right, that they're viewed. And the 4 includes, of course, 2 from Cedars, 1 from DOE, Division of Special Education, and 1 from the SOAR PT. Those are the 4 professionals that we're looking at completing by fall of 2025. So pretty soon, that's exciting. Here you go, Senator Barnett. 9 teachers will complete the UOG SOE Special Education Teacher Certification Program in fall 2025, right? It's taken a little over a year, but because that program is a traditional in-person program, these are 9 teachers who meet on Saturdays because it's a face-to-face program. So we're really glad that they're sticking to it and then we expect them to be completed by fall and ready. The ESDM certification, this is the one with Drexel University and the Mind Institute from UC Davis. As I mentioned, it's really targeting those young children, birth to 5, with autism, right? And so we collaborate through the Guam Public Health Preschool Development Grant in facilitating the introductory, advanced, and certification program. And you can see the numbers there in the last 2 years. We had 35 early childhood providers that went through the online introductory course. And of the 35, 23 went through the in-person, on-site training, advanced training, where they actually worked one-on-one with a young child with autism. So it gives them the experience about that approach. And we right now have 5 that's going through the certification. And so, which is really nice because then they would be certified ESDM early childhood providers. Preschool Development Grant is really interested and excited about continuing this, and so we're moving into a 3rd year. Again, the early identification and intervention and support for young children, especially children with autism, I think will go a long, long way, right, for high expectation in later years. I mentioned the FSM leadership certification, and we do have a contract in supporting their mentorship component for their grant, right? And these are administrators and teachers within the FSM in building their leadership capacity. The Accessible Masters in Special Ed, Senator Barnett, this is a follow-up to the 9, because we know that the 9 and the in-person type of traditional program is limiting access, right? So in collaboration with the School of Education, we applied and received a grant through the Office of Special Education Program, and it's Inamonya, Project Inamonya, to really deconstruct, reconstruct their master's program to an online delivery program. That way, it'll be more accessible to everyone on Guam, but also throughout the region. Because when you look at shortages of special education teachers, you know, we may have a few here on Guam, but there's more out there. And so making our preparation program accessible to others, right, via an online delivery system, I think then will help with looking at sustaining that workforce, right? Building that workforce and making available the program to sustain it. So thank you very much. Any questions? But you know, I have to say, we're in our 1st year, and our 1st year of a 5-year grant, and our 1st year is about need sensing. So we're taking a look at what are the stakeholders saying about the needs for this program. So we're meeting with educational leaders, we're meeting with teachers, we're also meeting with parents and families. Because if we're gonna reconstruct and develop this new accessible program within the University of Guam School of Education, we wanna make sure it's responsive to the needs of our community, not only on Guam, throughout the region. So this year is a need sensing, and then we're going to start working on the courses. We're also partnering with Drexel University in offering their post-baccalaureate certificate in special education law. Because one of the things we also know is you can build a program and make it available, but you got to have faculty to teach, right? And so at the same time, we're building that capacity, not only on Guam, it's throughout the region, right? So we're partnering with them to offer it to the region and faculty at the University of Guam. So by the time the program's ready, we'll have folks to teach it, and that's going to be the critical part, right? I mentioned the interdisciplinary studies, and this is being refined, and we want to offer it as a 1 credit, and that has been there, but we need to refine the existing course so that we can make it available across the schools and colleges. So you can see that a lot of the interdisciplinary preparation effort, right, as you said, right, that's our role, is really taking a look at how do we collaborate across the schools and colleges to increase professional capacity around disabilities. For training and technical assistance, you can see the various numbers there. I do want to point out, if you look at the autism diagnostic observation schedule cohorts, this has been a commitment from the Division of Special Education to really support their professionals in identifying children with autism spectrum disorder. And this started since 2016. And so they continue the commitment because even though we've certified, not we, but they went through the certification process through the Western Psychological WPS, right, services, and they did get certified. We know we have retirees, right? We know people leave and so forth, the attrition. And so the division is committed to continuing this effort to support that development of professionals, right? Model services, I mean, I'm just gonna skip. If there's one in particular that you want me to talk about, please let me know. But, you know, we mentioned about community services, model services, we mentioned about the Guam EDDI. We talked about the demonstration services through the AT project, and so you can see some of the numbers that we wanted to share with you. The one I want to pay attention to, and just to bring to attention, since you mentioned ACL, right? As I mentioned, you know, our role at the university is really looking at preparation and professional development. And so when we talk about leveraging resources, we really look for grant opportunities, right, in the professional areas. And I mentioned one, Project Inamonia. We just got awarded. We're working with SOE because we want to address the shortage of special education teachers, right? The other one that we put in for, because we know it's a need, is related to occupational therapists. We know that DOE does not have an occupational therapist. We know they rely on virtual telepractice, which is a method for delivering therapy, right? But we also understand that we need to build local capacity. So we did submit a grant through the Office of Special Education Program, Minority Serving Institute competition, because the University of Guam is a minority serving institution, MSI. And there are opportunities for grants, right? So we did partner with Hawaii Pacific University, and they're very collaborative. They have an OTD program. It's a doctorate in occupational therapy. They have a PTD, physical therapy doctorate, right, programs. And so it was a really great collaboration, and I think we need to continue that because they're available, and we have a good relationship with that. Take a look at what it says there, because we submitted in December, and what happened? We got notice that they're not going to issue any awards. So opportunities such as this to really look at professional development and preparation programs. To me, when you talk about ACL, this is coming out of US DOE, Office of Special Education Programs. And so as they look at cuts across the different departments, the concern may be, because we are a minority serving institution, because we are a minority community, then what does that leave for us? Yeah? And how do we then build our capacity? Right? We want to bring the resources to here, but if we don't have access to resources, you know, availability through grant competitions, then we may be limited. So as issues come up, as professional development needs are stressed, as Dan looks at issues and continues to advocate for individuals with disabilities, Dan and Jermaine, on our side, we really try to look at how do we access the resources to make these things happen? And if we're limited by the federal government, I leave that to you. What? So, I mean, this is just a summary. I hope this is helpful, and you can see our distinct roles, but also our complementary, right, roles in the area of disabilities. And really, you know, valuing our individuals with disabilities to make sure they're supported, to be productive citizens. And that's going to be the key. The high expectations for them as well, right? Just like you would expect for your kid. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jermaine. Thank you, Senators.
Cedars Masim is June for a robust explanation of what UOG Cedars do. But, you know, honestly, this is incredible because we get to delve in that, you know, deeper, and having the three component here, it just sheds light on a lot of issues. So, Sidus Masi to the three of you for all your testimonies. Now, before we proceed for to go ahead with other testimonies and the question and answer, I'd like to propose a 2-minute break, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, and we're back from recess. At this time, I would like to call, or I would like to start our discussion on question and answer. And I would like to ask my good colleague here, Senator Chris Barnett, if he has some questions to direct to the panel. Senator, you are recognized.
Cedars, Madam Chair, Manana Cedars, and good morning to the panel, and most especially Undokuluna Cedars Masi for the. This truly was an informational. I don't know about the briefing part because it was kind of lengthy, but the information we received, I think, was very beneficial, not just for some of the members here in the legislature, obviously for the viewing public. And although we read all too often about a lot of the challenges that the vulnerable populations that your respective entities serve, there are, I feel, some encouraging highlights and information that you presented. But that encouragement, at least for me, is tempered by just a lot of the uncertainty and the unknowns that have occurred since day one of this new administration, the Trump administration. And, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of cuts, whether it's the recent announcements about National Public Radio, PBS, the cuts that Attorney Summerfleck has mentioned, the potential cuts and losses of funding that you all have mentioned, onto the dismantling of the United States Department of Education, which to me really leads to a lot of questions about the state and the status of special education and a lot of these federal programs. Not all of them were established in 1975, but, we have had a history, and I think kind of what's been an acceptance from elected leaders who serve not just here on our island, but also across the nation, that these populations, it's not a question of whether we decide to serve them. It's an obligation and a responsibility that we do. And so all of these cuts that jeopardize these services, cuts that have already been made under the Trump administration, cuts that are impending, cuts that we don't know about, speculating about these cuts, I think it puts us in a difficult position, but not as difficult as the position that the communities that your organizations serve are in and will be in. I'm assuming by the end of the year, when the budget process is completed, we're going to get a good look at just how stark the realities and challenges that you guys are facing. And I think it's just I came to the hearing this morning hoping to hear, what Attorney Summerfleck had said, a dollar figure, what's it going to cost us in the event all of this craziness with the cuts pulls the plug on so many of these vital services. And I just can't wrap my mind around it. Every day you wake up, you're reading about some program. I get the government fraud, waste, and abuse, but these populations that we serve absolutely have nothing to do with that. And again, I believe it's an obligation. So I just wanted to kind of start by saying that, and also thanking you for the good work that you do, the kind of chipping away at some of the systemic issues that, are, for example, our students in special education have faced. I'm very encouraged that we kind of reinvigorated the special education teacher certification program so that we can fill some of those shortages, because everybody knows we have a shortage of teachers in GDOE. We've also got the shortage of the SPED teachers, and I continuously just hear a lot of concerns, as you know, Attorney Summerfleck, from parents, right, who are not, who they feel they're not getting the services that their students and their children and families deserve. So I kind of wanted to start with Mr. Summerfleck. I know that very familiar with what your organization does, but I did want to ask if you could provide a status update on just some of the cases that you're leading through the judicial system, and if there's any update on any of those cases, specifically the ones relative to the Guam Department of Education. Because we haven't had an update on that, and I'd like to just get that on the record here.
As of yesterday, we received a decision in the adequate education case. The decision was favorable and unfavorable. The court found, because the schools had passed inspection at this point, that the court would not issue an injunction on that issue, but did make a finding that the schools did not provide a safe sanitary condition for students, particularly at Ocean View. And the court did make a finding that the GDOE had failed to provide certified teachers. So those two findings are in place. The court also wants us to come back in July, end of July, for trial on the issue of mold within the schools, because that's not inspected by public health. So we got over a number of hurdles, and we still have one to go. We have also filed an action against the Guam Department of Education for ADA violations at Southern High School. Southern High School has not had functioning elevators for over 5 years now. We have filed and requested a temporary injunction. Yesterday, we received notice that Judge Gatewood is declaring a conflict based upon her brother working for our corporation, and the case is now being presided upon by Judge Manglonia out of Saipan. Those are our two active public litigations. At the same time, we continue to file what are called due processes in the special education system. I believe we have one right now pending, and this is a regular event. If you track what's going on at the Department of Education, particularly with the related services and occupational therapy, where we have no occupational therapists on island, there are regular shutdowns and 3 weeks, 2 months periods where children who already have agreements to provide these services are not receiving them. And parents come to our office and say, my child's not receiving any occupational therapy. My child is not receiving a one-to-one aid. And it's very straightforward when it's already agreed to in what's called an IEP, Individualized Educational Program. The difficulty comes when you get, GDOE puts out the notice to pretty much all the parents saying, service is not delivered. And as of this date, we are not delivering the service. So those are some of the more pressing issues that we're currently dealing with, particularly with GDOE. We also have some issues with our access and receiving information from GDOE. We're hoping we can resolve that without litigation, but so far it doesn't seem very positive. So those are some of the things that we're currently working on, specifically focused in education. I would opine that I don't think a week goes by when I'm not meeting with a parent discussing their child's education or concerns with their child's education. I would opine to you that the issue of bullying is accentuated for persons with developmental disabilities. I want your lunch. I want your snacks. Give it to me. Or I'll beat you up. Here's my lunch. Here's my snacks. We find that issue continues very strongly inside the department. And those are harder to remedy. We're not talking about a systemic issue that comes from the management. We're talking about an issue that comes from the student population. Now, we could easily say that that also involves a role of management for the supervision and for the protection of these individuals, but those are the issues that we're addressing. And honestly, from my perspective, one of the worst is the bullying. You know, I can't imagine children going to school or every morning waking up fearing going to school because of what's going to happen at the school site, because they're going to be confronted, they're going to be bullied, someone is going to try and take advantage of them. I can't think of a worse scenario. I mean, I used to wake up worried about, did my pea plant grow in the basement? You know, am I going to have any science project to show my 4th grade teacher, or is the thing dead? You know, and I've got a pot with nothing in it. That was my anxieties. I can't imagine going to school every day and worrying that someone's going to threaten to harm me. And I think that's, to me, is a very scary situation, not only for the child, but for the parent. You know, one of the things as a parent, particularly as a parent of any student, but particularly as a parent of a child with a developmental disability, it's always in your mind. It's always in your mind that your child is going to be picked on because they're different. They don't act the same as everyone else acts. And what does that lead to in that school environment? And I think that's why programs like Cedars is offering to teachers become so key. How do you address these kind of issues? How do you create that environment for children with disabilities that is a positive environment, that is something that they look forward to going to school each day? So I know you didn't ask me about that, and I probably went on longer than you wanted, but to me, that's a great concern, and it's a concern that we're regularly seeing. So that would be my response.
Thank you for that. I think it's frustrating. I'll just start with bullying. I think what's frustrating to me is I get a lot of the concerns too from the parents of special education students specific to bullying, and what I find troubling is that by the time they get to my office and calling us, they've already tried to talk to the administration of the school. They've tried to talk to the superintendent. They don't get answers. And so they end up calling, well, they call you and they call me, and you know, we end up having to call the school. And there was a young student, high school, autistic, being bullied. You said, give me your lunch, give me your lunch. This was a case of give me your hat. Give me your hat. And the family had brought these concerns up to through every appropriate channel that I think you know, they're entitled to, and they got nothing. And so then it comes to our office, it comes to you. So I know what you're saying about systemic challenges, but I think also at the end of the day, if we're not engaging these concerns at the appropriate level and they're then being taken to the senator's offices, or, you know, I mean, we shouldn't have to be going to court to fight for these just very basic services that should be provided. And, you know, just going back also to what you had said about management and adequate education judgment that had come out, I was made aware yesterday of a situation at a local high school in which a parent alleges that their child has been without a certified teacher since the start of the school year. And so these students are then sent to the cafeteria where they're supervised or not, according to the parent, by aides. And so because we have a shortage of aides, you have several classes being supervised by one individual. And, you know, unfortunately, due to that lack of supervision, or not, I mean, it's also an issue with students, but this parent alleges that there was an assault that took place on their child. So for me, yes, we're talking about student behavior, but if the department and the entities that are supposed to be just providing a baseline level of services, like a certified teacher in every classroom so that students don't have to go to the cafeteria for months on end and, you know, sit through hours of non-instructional time when they should be getting that adequate education, then I don't think we can entirely blame the students.
I don't think we can either. And I think that's where it becomes key to having certified teachers.
Yeah.
You know, I'll make two comments. First of all, My wife did not give me the black eye. I had eye surgery.
I didn't want to ask.
She wanted me to make
GDOE?
sure to bring that up when we took the break. I didn't do that to you.
I was thinking Superintendent Swanson did.
Well, maybe I should have let your imaginations go wild then. But my second point is that education is key. And it's not only education of the students, it's having appropriately certified educators.
Right.
You know, my wife started a second career after being in banking for a number of years. She decided to become a teacher. So I got to go through her undergraduate classes up until her graduation, and I saw how much effort is put into providing quality teachers. She had the opportunity to student teach under teachers who I thought were excellent master teachers, and she benefited greatly from that. Now compare that to a high school graduate who has no training in education and has said, you're in charge of 30 kids. I don't think we're helping. And I don't blame that high school graduate who's been tossed in front of 30 kids, that they're trying as best they can. But if you don't have the background, you don't have experience, you don't have the knowledge base, you're giving a task that I don't think is accomplishable. I mean, I remember my wife coming home and saying, you know, we had this issue, we had that issue, and here's how we did, you know, here's what we did. I couldn't question that. I couldn't say to her, you did that? You did what? It was like, that makes sense, you know, but that's someone who graduated from the University of Guam with her teaching certificate, you know, and I think that certification means a lot. And I think to say to our kids, anyone can teach you, even though they just graduated high school, and you're in and the students they're teaching are 2 or 3 years younger than them. I don't know that that works. I don't think it does, to be honest. And I think that's how we're having some of these issues, where we have students that aren't engaged. I mean, again, it's been a long time since I was in school, but I do remember the days when we had the substitute teachers. Yee-haw, we got a sub, yippee, good day today. Perhaps I wasn't the best student.
You turned out okay.
But I can't imagine, you know, 17-year-olds being taught by a 19-year-old. And I can't imagine that that 19-year-old is able to demand the respect that a graduate of undergrad with what, who's 22, 20, 21, 22 years old, with the knowledge base behind them, I can't imagine that they're equal at all. So I do think there needs to be a push to continue to have certified teachers, to continue to have individuals that have specialization. And for this population, there's a lot of frustration. I don't know what a specific learning disability is unless you tell me what the specific learning disability is. Yet I see IEPs that say he has a specific learning disability. Well, what is it? What is that specific learning disability? For example, I have a learning disability. I have dyslexia. When I look at a page, I look, instead of from left to right, I look from right to left. That's the way my brain functions. It's only because I had knowledgeable people around me that were able to reprogram my brain so I would look at the left-hand side of the page and read from the left-hand side of the page, that I've been able to have success. And but for having that throughout elementary school, I don't think I would be where I am now. I don't think I would have the ability to be where I am now. So I think the training, the knowledge for any teacher is a requirement. I think the training and the knowledge for the special ed teachers is a specialized teaching. And in no way, shape, or form am I here to make suggestions to you, the legislature, about this. But I would say, well, I'll quote my wife again, and she said, one of her instructors said, you should go into special ed. Don't stay there, because you may become special ed if you stay too long, but you should do it. Is there any incentive for these teachers that take on what I think are some of the hardest students in our educational system to take on that as compared to be a regular ed teacher? No. A special ed teacher gets the same pay as a regular ed teacher. Why we don't provide incentives? I mean, I hate to say it, but everyone functions based upon income. And if you offer an increased income to special ed teachers, you may have more people interested in filling those positions. And I do think we need to start looking at this, particularly in short budget times. How can we maximize what we already have? And I think one of the ways to do that is to pay them more than you pay a regular ed teacher. So I do think there are things that we can do, but at the same time, I don't have an answer of how we get over the shortage of regular ed teachers.
I think this legislature and previous ones have tried to tinker with a lot of these systemic challenges. So I'll just kind of speak on the one-to-one aids. As you know, the Deputy Superintendent of Special Education, Mr. Tom Abalta, has shared with the legislature the intention of the Guam Department of Education to kind of reclassify, redescribe what these jobs are, and instead of one-to-one aides, the para-educators, right?
Right.
And to ensure that that reclassification comes with some kind of appropriate increase in the compensation, because, to kind of expand off your point about special education teachers getting paid the same as regular teachers, well, it's a lot of it has to do with the passion, right? The passion with which they serve the kids. A lot of these one-to-one aides, I mean, they're part-time. They get let go every year, and they do it because they love these kids. But that doesn't put food on the table, and so
and it also doesn't give them the respect that they're due.
Correct. Yeah, and so
these one-to-one aides are in the worst-case situation oftentimes. And I've often wondered the reasoning behind it, and I've often been told, oh, because they're federally funded. What? How does that make any difference? You keep track of their time, what they're spending on federal dollars, you bill to the federal government. That doesn't seem like it's any different than any other program you operate. I mean, I have a staff of 15. I don't know of anyone in my staff that only operates in one program. They're funded from different programs based upon the amount of time they work in those programs. But at the same time, you bring up an issue where I'm somewhat familiar because our child had a one-to-one aide. And I would opine that some of the one-to-one aides that he had were spectacular, almost as good as June's brochure today. Sorry, cheap shot.
there's an app for that.
But I would also say I don't blame them at all when I heard that they were leaving.
Yeah.
If they've been in a job for 4 years, they've never gotten an increment, they have no hope of getting an increment, and every summer they don't know if they're going to be back the next school year, how do you keep that employment? as compared to I can become a school aide 1. In 4 years, I'll definitely be at least a school aide 2. And I'll be making more money, and I'll be on a track where I have security. And I think that lack of security, that lack of continuity, that lack of knowing that I can do this as a career, we're getting what we paid for. We're getting high school graduates who don't have that same commitment, and we're losing the ones that do. You know, I can say that both of the paraeducators, one-to-one aides that I thought were very good, have gone on. You know, why would you stay? You know, one actually went on to get his teaching certification. Another bounced around for a while and I think is back in GDDC, but not as a paraeducator, you know, in a different capacity. So yes, I do think we need to start showing to these individuals that are working with our children that there is some incentive for them to take heart to the work they do. It's great to hear everyone say, well, I'm doing it because I'm committed to these kids, and I salute that, and I don't minimize it at all. But that doesn't mean when push comes to shove, they can't ever buy a house. They can't ever buy a new car. I mean, think about it. If I'm on a year-to-year contract, are they going to give me a loan knowing that I'm only on a year-to-year contract as compared to someone who has a classified position in the government? So I think there is a need for change, but I'm not going to lobby.
I wish you would. Yeah, and I think a lot of just the discussions we've had over the last few years about services and the challenges that GDOE faces in meeting these obligations to special education. I just think, given the uncertainty with USDOE, we should start maybe talking amongst ourselves about a better system, a better model, you know, centralization of services. How do we maximize what we do have, and then also be cognizant of the very real threat of funding cuts that currently, you know, that funding is being used to pay for these different services.
Well, and I think one thing that was educational to me today was all that Cedars is doing.
Yeah.
You know, I've been seeing ADOS everywhere because they've trained a bunch of the psychologists and a bunch of the people at GDOE. So I get ADOS left and right and ADOS evaluations, and it's spectacular. You know, I didn't know that the early hearing intervention was occurring at the hospital before the child's released. You know, one of the things that I also learned that I thought was really a spectacular thing was when they do these hearing assessments or when they're interacting with family members, part of the program consists about bringing high school seniors to those meetings. And to me, that was like, duh, what a great idea. I mean, if I have a newborn child and someone's telling me they have significant hearing loss, what the heck does that mean? You know, what does it mean for my child's future? What does it mean as to how they are going to be able to relate? And bringing in seniors from our school system to say, okay, I'm a person with significant hearing loss. Here's what I'm able to do. Here's what my life looks like. As compared to our new Secretary of HHS, if it's still going to be called that in the future, saying that he wants to have a registry for individuals with autism, and individuals with autism will never have relationships and never be employed. I just find that to be hopeless. And I'm not prepared to be hopeless toward any individual.
I mean, also, I would just say it's completely inaccurate as well. Right, and for those kind of statements and pronouncements to be coming out from, you know, the most powerful government officials in the nation, I just struggled to make sense of it in my head. And then you have all of these cuts, you know, from USDOE, public radio, PBS, and a lot of these services that are being cut or threatened. While they may be some DEI this or that over in the States, over here, we can't help it if we're all indigenous, you know. It's not DEI here. It's just providing, you know, these services that, and I agree with what you said about Cedars. I mean, I knew they did the hearing testing. I knew they also provided assistance with the assistive technology, but just to see like all of the training and the engagement they have with the Guam Department of Education and the various partnerships they have with higher learning institutions across the states to address what, you know, if you talk to some of the Guam DOE management about just some of these shortages, sometimes they say, oh, these positions are hard to fill. We don't have people on island who meet these qualifications, specifically with the Tiny Eyes vendor. So we had a town hall at Ukadu, and there was a 1-to-1 aide, Mr. Peter, who had given a testimony about having to do an online occupational therapy with his Tiny Eyes vendor and then his one-to-one student. And, you know, he kind of made me laugh because he said that the occupational therapist, it looked like they just woke up because of the time difference, right? And then so, you know, we start asking questions about why don't we have these services here on Guam, and then come to find out these positions are extremely hard to fill. And so the solution to that, I'm so grateful with Ms. June, is that they are working on addressing that through some of these partnerships and these programs to bring some of these certifications that we need for these hard-to-fill positions in the Guam Department of Education.
These informational briefings are not only informative to you all. I know it was very informative to me, and I'm sure it was very informative to Jermaine as well.
Yep.
And honestly, I have pride that Cedars has conducted and has developed professionals in our community and continues to do it. Like I said, I knew about the ADOS because I saw all sorts of children that I work with who have the ADOS test. Little did I know that my partner is the one that is training them all. Facilitating the training of them all. So I do think that it's vital that we continue to look at how we can improve. I'm hoping, but I don't know, that the powers that be in Washington will see value in the programs that are being offered through the different federal agencies, and I hope that they understand the value. I do believe that there are a number of networks, including my own, where I'm up every Saturday morning at 5 o'clock chatting with other CEOs from across the country about what's going on and how we're going to address it, is becoming key. And I, without, again, lobbying, I would strongly ask for your support to Congress through a proclamation saying, these programs are important to us. But, you know, we're all kind of sitting on our hands right now waiting to see what's going to happen, you know, over the next month.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to kind of get into a little bit. So you had said that you had wanted to say that you also are protectors for voter access and traumatic brain injury. That's no longer the case. Is this relative to cuts?
The voter access is slated to be cut in the new budget. The traumatic brain injury was not reauthorized back in September, so there is no funding for traumatic brain injury at this point.
Can you give us an idea of, just so we can be aware and be looking out for it, what timeline, if any, would you have notification relative to the other programs that you do? Because, you know, I asked you to go over just some of the lawsuits that you're representing clients in, and I did that because I want to kind of give the people of Guam an idea of the value of the service that you provide at the Disability Law Center. So what channels do you check to be, you know, kind of keeping an eye on these cuts?
We have a number of channels, mostly through my national organization. We are constantly monitoring, you know, what's going on with the recent continuing resolution. We're still waiting for our money. We received from one funding source, we received continued funding for 1 quarter, and the next quarter, we don't know whether we're funded. For our PAD program, part of this, what we spoke about, the developmental disabilities, we have no idea. You know, if they do a block grant to the states, then we're all going to be competing and looking to how we can continue our existence. Every suggestion I'm seeing is suggesting that the current Congress wants to pass budget by the end of May. So I'm assuming we'll start getting more budget documents that are not what called unofficial, skinny. The last one was called the skinny budget, because it basically just said, we're cutting this much from these programs, but
yeah,
didn't
we're calling
say what
that
they're cutting.
my colleagues are calling that a contingency budget here in the 38th Guam legislature. The semantics, really.
I think I would find it very difficult at this point to be in your shoes to decide what's going to be funded and what's not going to be funded when we don't even know where our status is with the federal government. And what's going to happen with DOE? We don't know. You know, what's going to happen with our programs? We don't know. You know, which is why I'm waking up every Saturday at 5 in the morning to listen to my fellow directors give me the gossip. And that's really how we're functioning. Oh, I talked to so-and-so and they said this. We all cross our fingers and maybe that happens and maybe it doesn't. You know, but I can say with all sincerity to you all, I know that my program, and I announced this to my staff this morning, I said, okay, we've run the numbers again. It looks like we're safe until the end of September. But after September, I can't say that there's any funding and that we're still going to be here. I hope we will, but I can't say with any confidence to people that work for me that we're safe beyond the end of September. And I was grateful for that. I mean, our accountant gave me the balance sheet this morning and it was like, okay, we made it. We're good at least until October, and after...
But what happens after that?
There's no money.
And so I think that's where we our relationship kind of comes into play. If there's no money, then give us an idea of how much it costs to fund the Disability Law Center for a year.
Well, that can easily be done. You're looking at probably about $1.2 million for all programs. You know, but also probably $1 million, because 2 of that, I'm hearing that violence women's programs are somewhat secure. So that means at least I might have 200 grand coming into the next fiscal year. Otherwise, we're going to be short about $1 million. You know, and for example, they talk about our PAMI program, Protection and Advocacy for Individuals with Mental Illness. They're talking that may be cut in half. So is it going to be cut in half? Is it going to be cut completely? Is it going to be fully funded? No idea. You know, and I don't know that anyone does have an idea. You know, every day, you know, first thing in the morning, I'm checking my stateside email, you know, where our CEOs chat, and I know Jermaine and June are in the same boat because, you know, right around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I start getting the emails from these guys about what they've pulled off the internet from their guys, and I'm sharing what I'm getting from my guys. I wish I could answer your question. I wish I could say to you, we need you to put aside X number of dollars to keep us functioning. You know, I've often thought about coming to you all and asking for bridge funding because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want my program shut down, and I want to continue to provide services. But I would also say that we're starting, I would assume everyone else as well, we're starting austerity measures. No one is traveling from Guam Legal Services this year. It's not going to happen. We did that at the beginning of the year for kind of foreseeing what was coming down the pipe. So I really don't know, Senator, to be honest. But I could give you numbers as to what our current funding is.
Just keep us informed. And I also want to thank you for implementing the austerity measures. I hope government of Guam is watching and could possibly get the hint because there's so much uncertainty, you know, and so many unknowns.
Behind me might be frowning.
Senator, if
yes,
I could add on our side, right? I think our national organization is looking at, typically we get notice of award for the CEDDERS closer to when it's needed, which is July 1. Our you know, annual budget is July 1 through June 30. So we're getting close to that part. I also mentioned for HRSA, the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Program that's funded out of ACL. You know, that's on the proposed budget cut, right? Elimination. That starts April 1. We got a partial grant award. So we're hoping to get the other part, but we don't know, right? So that started April 1.
Can you expand on the partial? Was it half, a quarter?
Less than half.
I see.
Of our annual budget.
And was there any indication that it was an allotment and there were more coming?
I guess because of the continuing resolution, resolution? Is that what it is, right? They were only able to allocate that much, but they anticipate once it's finalized. But then, like I said, if they cut HRSA out of the budget, then it ends. And we know of other projects that one day they get an email and say, you're terminated. We've heard that. Right?
Yeah, that happened with the Small Business Administration.
Yes.
It's happening.
Yeah, I just saw Kenneth funeral, and yeah, he had totally blindsided by it.
Yep.
It's happening across the board. The administrators at ACL showed up for work one day and were told, don't go up, you're let go.
Yeah. You know, I always think of the metaphor, what is it, Elon Musk, the chainsaw. You know, I mean, if you're in there trying to cut stuff with a chainsaw, it's not very surgical, and you're definitely gonna nick an artery. You know what I mean? So on the funding, the allotment or the amount that you received, it was less than half. And so how much more? What's the total funding that you get?
So from ACL,
yeah.
and this is including our assistive technology grant, we get about $1 million a year, a little over $1 million a year. And that covers our USED, the EDDI, as well as the assistive technology projects.
Can I ask, this sounds like a really great program, and you know, forgive my ignorance, I've never heard of the Acuity loan program.
Oh my gosh. So there's a phone number there. And then we have the website.
It's 671-735-2491 is the phone number.
It's designed to assist individuals with disabilities, you know, that want to improve their ability to work, right, to live, so definitely it's on our website as far as the application.
So how many people avail of this program?
So do you want our 5-year Then I have to look it up. I can give it
No,
to
no,
you
no,
later.
just so people know about it is
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so what's the funding source?
So it started with a federal grant, but we work with Bank of Guam as far as the institution, right, to do the loan process. So it's a part of that process.
Okay. And just so people who are watching know, the Akuti loan program provides alternative financing with very low interest and flexible terms to allow consumers the ability to purchase assistive technology devices. The purchase of a personal van that's wheelchair accessible is an example of a qualified assistive technology. And for more information, I feel like I should use my commercial voice.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You can call the program 671-735-2491. Madam Chair, Dispensa, I know I use a lot of the time. I can see you reaching for the microphone. I thank you for a lot of this information. I had a lot of questions because a lot of it is new information. And I'm right there with you guys. I feel the uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be good. And so I'm grateful to have this information and some of the numbers that you provided too, Jermaine. I don't want to leave you out of it. Did you have something to add?
I was just going to comment on, you sound like you have a radio voice. That was the only thing I was going to comment on.
Oh, stop it some more. No, but thank you very much for the information and the numbers so that, I mean, obviously a lot of people come into the People's House asking for appropriations, and I think the 38th Guam legislature, and specifically the Finance Committee, are going to have a very tough job prioritizing the needs of our people. Not necessarily our government, the needs of our people, especially given all this uncertainty with the federal cuts. And so I stand by. Well, I think you guys are absolutely a priority, and I thank you for your commitment to the communities that you serve. And Sidus Masi, Madam Chair, for the chance to speak this morning.
Sidus Masi, Senator Barnett. Senator Barnett is part of my committee, so I am truly grateful for your presence, sir, and for your input in this informational briefing. I'm going to go ahead and throw some questions towards Mr. Jermaine Alerta. As Guam's primary disability advocacy organization, GDDC plays a vital role in ensuring policy reflects the need of individuals with disabilities. This question helps gauge key priorities. What are the most pressing advocacy priorities for GDDC right now, especially in light of federal funding uncertainties?
Thank you so much for the question. So by law, we're mandated to present a 5-year state plan. And let me back up first. And so the membership on our council actually is how we get the information. We have a 28-member council, and 60% of that's made up of individuals with developmental disabilities and their family members, immediate family members. Then we have government agencies, we have a non-government organization, and then also we have, of course, our DD network partners. We build on their stories, on their experiences to bring the issues to us, right? Like Senator Barnett was alluding to, a lot of the issues exist, but there's not a lot of spotlight on them. People, our culture, maybe it's by design, they're not always upfront about speaking about the issues in their family, whether it be issues dealing with people with disabilities. And so we look at our members to bring their experiences and what they know from living their lives to the table. So in the DD Council, we've identified education, employment, transportation, and we have healthcare as one of our things. And then, of course, we have self-advocacy, right? Training and empowering people to live more independent lives. So our chairperson routinely brings up transportation issues because she's a user of the transit system. We have parents on our council who speak about, and Attorney Summerfleck talks about this quite often, some of the shortfalls in our education system in terms of preparing students who are in the school system to transition, whether it be post-secondary or into the workforce. So those are definitely issues that are brought up. And then, of course, employment for older individuals, individuals with disabilities. Just the opportunities to get jobs, whether it just be the lack of opportunities, maybe employers or potential employers aren't entirely sure how to incorporate people with disabilities into their workforce. So some of the things that we want to work on are providing trainings and opening people's eyes to ways to make things more accommodating so that you can get the most out of people who want to contribute to your organization. So some of those some of those issues are what we expect our members to share with us, because we can speak about what we observe, but they live it. They go through it. Some of them have experienced it for decades. And I always talk to them and say, you know, when I worked in the legislature, so I worked in the legislature for a long time, and the issues that when I first started in 2005 were issues that were still being talked about when I began at the DD Council in 2019. And for me, I was just kind of, you know, disappointed that the issues have been going on for that long. We have members who began in the DD Council and were getting services for their children back when they were infants in elementary. Now their children are 30 years old, and they're still fighting to get the services. They're still fighting for things to get improved, and we want to help them. So education, employment, and I don't want to. Each of our members have their own specific issues, but we try to look at the bigger picture in those particular areas. So we work very closely with government agencies that provide these services, community organizations that provide these services, and of course our DD Network partners who do the same thing. And like Attorney Summerflick said, we're up at 5, 6 in the morning on these national calls, just trying to get a better understanding of where we're going to be. We're also told that we're funded to the end of this fiscal year, so we're optimistic about that, and we do receive notices of awards on our funding. But after that, it's all a waiting game for us, as it is with a lot of people. So we really appreciate you giving us this platform to make our issues, to shed a little more light on the issues, because those services and those programs are out there, and people just don't know about them. And we want to reassure them that programs like ours exist for that very reason, so that they know that there are supports out there in the community, and they don't have to feel alone, and there are others going through similar things. And it's definitely something that we as a community need to work harder to make better.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. You know, to be honest, in the last 4 months, I had been pondering here in my head how we can creatively improve workforce access for individuals with disability. Because I'm thinking to myself, you know, it's a pathway to ensure that, you know, these individuals can have economic independence as well. Many can work, I know that. These are the things, challenges that I see that we can all work together on how we can improve our system. You mentioned that you offer educational trainings for individuals. What can we do to, perhaps we can also offer educational training to companies, organizations that are willing and able or interested to hire individuals with disabilities. You know, it's something that we can probably work on together and put on the table.
So one of the things that each of our organizations offer, and we've conducted in the past, is disability sensitivity and awareness training. We've also offered it to the legislature, so we're just waiting for them to respond to us. And Senator Calvo's office has been in touch with us, so we're very hopeful to do that. But it's because I came from the legislature, right? And I understand that it's very quote-unquote, customer service oriented. We're interacting with people on a daily basis with different problems, right? Whether it be the hospital, whether it be the schools, whether it be lack of employment opportunities, right? There are different issues. So learning how to interact with people with disabilities, takes some time. And it's correct behaviors, using the correct language. And those are some of the things that are offered out there. I know DISID also does some of their trainings. So we just got to get a better understanding as a community of people are going to be different. We just have to know how to adapt, how to best accommodate everyone, right? The accommodations don't just serve the people with disabilities. Accommodations are going to be wide open and broad so that everyone benefits from it. And that's what we need to incorporate. That's what we need to teach, is that when you open it up, maybe initially for people with disabilities, it opens up doors and everything for other people. So it's not just, I think one of the examples they've used in the past is someone was asking for a ramp to be able to access a building. And they said, oh, well, why are we going to get a ramp for just one person? Well, everyone can use the ramp, right? So if you allow the use of something for a group of people, it is going to benefit everyone in the long run. So that's kind of how the mindset we need to take in the community, is that opening up our opportunities and learning more about different groups of people and how to better interact with people benefits everyone in the long run.
True, I agree very much. So, is there
Senator,
sorry.
If I might, I've been to a number of legislative hearings, and I heard a suggestion put forward at one of these hearings by Eddie Rages of Flame Tree or Laddie Treatment Center, and that is modify the way we contract. Give an advantage to programs that employ individuals with disabilities in government contracting. It didn't sound to me to be major changes. I can contact Mr. Rages and present to you all what his thought process is. I can say from a personal basis, my son was employed until the pandemic working with a group of other autistic individuals doing web page development. And for some reason, this team of autistic individuals had a very sharp sense about web page development. Why, I don't know, but the reality was that was an opportunity that fit to those individuals, and he was able to get a contract to develop web pages for the government of Guam and employed more than a handful of individuals with autism to develop government of Guam web pages. So I think part of the employment issue, we need to look internally. How can we as a government encourage employment of individuals with disabilities? How can we develop that framework for a business to develop an industry and then expand from the government of Guam? So I don't know if that's something that this legislature is interested in, but I'd be happy to reach out to Mr. Rages and turn him your direction, although you may not like that.
I think in line, attorneys Summerfleck, I think in line with what you mentioned, identifying the strengths of individuals are also vital, imperative. That would be in an educational and learning about the individual standpoint, because that way we have these resources, like you mentioned, strength in web page development, for instance, then we can match them. We can place them where they fit perfectly, correct? So Thank you for bringing up that point, and a framework would be very, very helpful. I would love to work with you on that one. Well, my office will contact you on that note, sir.
I can educate, but I can't work.
Yeah, the framework is important. You got me. The framework, I like frameworks.
Understood.
Seriously.
I'll get a hold of him today.
Yeah, and on that note, sir, I'd like to finish with Mr. Germain, just so, because we're almost done. I just wanted to see what other strategies that we could tap on, or we could explore, or to be employed to increase public understanding and support for disability advocacy efforts.
Well, first, we'd like to commend the legislature, actually, because I know it started in last legislature, but identifying disability services in the name of a committee is a big step. I know previously it did fall under the Committee on Health, but just identifying it shows that there's an actual priority made on the particular area. In the DD Council, I really stress a lot the need to participate in outreach events. Any opportunities our council is approached with or we find out about, well, I'm very nosy and I go on social media a lot, so if I see any opportunity to get our name out there, I want to jump at it. We have it's just me and Marie and Ray and our staff. There's 3 of us. We do count on our council to help, push the word out there. And a lot of them, what it is they're involved in many other organizations, so they're spread very thin. It's a very close-knit community, the people with disabilities, and we try our best to get their stories out there. We try our best to share their experiences and all that stuff. And I think increased public outreach in terms of getting involved in public events. So if anyone's listening, if you have any events that you want us to take part in, I've known about the Cootie loan, but every time I talk to people with disabilities, I always push that loan, that program, because it's very beneficial. As a person who just recently acquired a disability, I can't imagine going through life struggling. So any help you can get, like I said earlier, the programs are out there. It's just greater sense of awareness in the community, and it's through aggressive outreach campaigns, all these different community events that we go to, and of course, just helping people better understand some of the issues, because we all know someone who has a disability if we're not the individual with a disability, and I think it benefits all of us if people understand where to turn to if they do need the help. And if we can't provide it, I show them in the direction that they can go to, and then they can make the determination whether or not this is what they're ultimately looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Alerta. If I may add, I think a lot of people don't understand that we do have a growing population of individuals with disability here. I think more importantly, people do not take into consideration that there is the aging part, disability wherein in terms of aging process, wherein if you start losing your eyesight, your hearing, that is marked as a form of disability as well. So as a community, I think we need to change our perception and our understanding towards what disability or individuals with disability means. So on that note, I just wanted to add that and make sure, put it in the record to make people understand, our community understand that our concerns with regards to disability here on Guam and our island is really growing, and it's really vast. We're not seeing the truth behind disability, and I just want to clarify that for the record. Like you mentioned earlier, that we're all getting there. But thank you, Mr. Alerta. Yes, thank you for your for answering my questions. Ms. June, I'd like to throw some questions your way. You know, I was at the GSAT Expo, and I was truly happy that I was able to attend that, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to say some remarks. And that was just recently, and I know that in the modern times that we live in, there's a lot of access when it comes to technology innovation. And I want us, our community, to speed up in accepting and embracing technologies for individuals that need assistance. So innovative solutions, I understand, such as adaptive technology, can improve mobility, communication, and education access for individuals with disabilities. How can assisted technology play a greater role in improving accessibility and independence for individuals with disabilities on Guam? It's just, I wanted you to shed light, just for the record, so our community can understand that these technology and innovation can actually play a big role. You know, it's something that we should look into adapting. So please shed light to the importance.
Yeah,
of it.
thank you, Senator. And I think that's why we have the GSAT. And then we have the model home, because sometimes you can't understand it until you see it, you feel it, you see what it'll do for you. And so we try the best we can to bring in all those innovations, right? So that folks can try it out. Will that support them to be better at their job, to be better and more independent at home? And then we do have the loan program, because before you decide, okay, I want to buy it, because you know how sometimes you buy things and then it doesn't fit all the time. That's why my closet is full, because I'm going to fit it one of these days. but that's part of our process, right? And then we work with them to then give them a 30-day loan to use it, to test it, right? The idea is to be as independent as possible. So if there are devices and supports that can do that in your home, at work, so forth, we all, I mean, I use a planner, right? So if you might have your calendar on your phone, we all have some way of mechanism of helping us throughout the day, or a way for us to remember things, right? To me, that's part of the assistive technology realm, right? And when you're an individual with a disability, you might not know what's out there, and so that's why we invite folks to come and visit. Take a look at what we have, and take a look at, so we can ask the question, what do you want to do more independently? What is it, right? So we're definitely available. Our GSAT is at House 19, Dean Circle. And then our model house is House 20, Dean Circle.
Thank you. So basically, the reason why I want you to explain about that is because these are not just for the individuals or individuals with disabilities, but it's good information for family members, for people that actually live or are acquainted with people, individuals with disabilities. Yes. Senator
mentioned
Barnett.
Senator Calvo, I just want to make a note. I mean, it's as simple as a wheelchair. For instance, you're in the hospital, and I think that was one of the comments in the description, right? Is because we would get calls. Because if you're released from the hospital, you need a wheelchair, where are you going to get it? You know, so we have that. We can support that. And so it could be temporary, but it could be lifelong, right? And so we're here in the community to support that need.
The GSAT Expo was truly a good get-together of a lot of services and entities that offer assistance to individuals with disabilities. It was a very successful event, and I wanted to commend you guys for the success of it. Yes,
that definitely is a tri-agency
effort.
activity.
Yes, and I recognize, you know, the importance of it to our community. So thank you for that again. Just a quick question from Senator Barnett with regards to.
Sorry, I just wanted to know the house numbers. So house number 19 at
Is
Dean
the
Circle.
GSAT
Okay.
office, right? And then house 20 is the model home.
Model home. Thank you, Madam Chair. And again,
You guys should come up and check the toys out. According to what Attorney Summerflat calls them toys.
Senator Barnett and myself will come visit
so it's like
and check it out.
a smart house for assistive technology. Awesome. And I just wanted to kind of, Germania talked about when he kind of first were here at the legislature, we're discussing a lot of the same issues. I just want to commend you guys for the work that you do, because when I was first elected, I kind of had this thought that our people, a lot of times we move into this mode of acceptance, right? We're very quick to just accept that services are not available. And then to know that you guys are toiling tirelessly, you know, through all of this to make these changes systemic, you know, and training and accessibility. I just want to commend you for doing that, because we just got to keep pushing forward. And I think the advocacy and the awareness is where we can come in by having these hearings and really just pushing the agenda that suits what you guys are trying to deliver to the communities that you serve. Cedars, Wasi again, Madam Chair.
Thank you again, Senator. You know, I'm a fierce advocate of children. So you mentioned this earlier when you were doing your presentation, Ms. June. I just wanted to know, caught my attention because you spoke about early intervention, and for me that's quite vital. And because investing in early intervention helps children achieve their fullest potential, and it reduces long-term barriers to education and independence. So what key improvements are needed in early intervention programs to better support children with developmental disabilities and their families?
Well, I think you see examples of what we're facilitating, like the Early Start Denver model, right? And it's really through the preschool development grant, through the public health, Department of Public Health, right? And one of the things we know for early intervention, and GDOE, Division of Special Education, does receive the IDEA Part C grant for early intervention. It's called the Guam Early Intervention System. So they get funding to support children birth through to age 3, right, who need the identification and early intervention services. But it's really a coordination effort. Mm-hmm. Through public health, there is the Guam Early Learning Council, the GLSC. And I think that council pulls together all the early childhood providers to look at what they can do to collaborate, right? And so there is that executive order that established that Guam Early Learning Council. So I think more support, and the Public Health Preschool Development Grant supports that systems improvement piece. So I think more support in that regards, as far as coordination and collaboration across all early childhood programs, will be really critical. And so we've been a part of that through the Guam EDI, because we work with that age group. And so through the project and other contracts with Department of Public Health, we've been able to support that coordination and collaboration. So that's going to be critical, because I agree with you, Senator Calvo, the earlier you identify, the earlier you provide the intervention needed, especially for families, in really understanding the needs of their child, right? And so a lot of times, early on, especially below age 3, you're really working with the families, maybe not necessarily the child, because it's the family acceptance, right? And really their ability to work with their child is going to be critical to give the kid a jump start, in essence. And so they're with the child 24/7. And so you could be a service provider that makes a home visit once a week, once a month. So you're really working with the families, right, as far as what needs to happen. And so our work with the Guam Early Intervention Services, as far as how we can support them, has been, I think, really good, especially with funding from PDG. By the way, that's also no more, huh? Did you know that? That's on the cuts, the preschool development grant. That's on the, out of HHS, that's on the president's cuts, right?
All right. Wow. Yeah. So this was truly an informational briefing. And that would be my last question for everyone. And at this time, I'd like to give a huge undang kalun seduce masi to Attorney Summerfleck, Ms. De Leon, and Mr. Alerta, all for all the information that you have presented to us today. It's truly, truly, awakening. You know, there's a lot of information that we gathered today that is truly helpful and vital. And with all these, we take it and we work on the kinks and all the things that we need to work on, and hopefully we can resolve some of the challenges and issues that we have on our table. So thank you so much to everyone that came to this informational hearing. And to those who provided testimonies, the committee will continue to receive testimony for 10 calendar days after the hearing. Please submit your testimony to the Guam Legislature mailroom or via email at Office of Senator Shelly Calvo at guamlegislature.gov. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending this year and providing this feedback. And I'd like to thank, special thanks to my colleague here, a member of my committee, Senator Chris Barnett, for being here. This information hearing is now adjourned at 11:57 a.m. Sidus Masi once again, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.